Welcome to Railfans. I'm Shane Sege. Join us as we discover Ottawa's O train, Toronto's subway, and Montreal's metro system together. Welcome to Railfans Canada. I'm Shane Sege, and joining me today is Jeff. And today we're going to be talking about the state of the O train. Obviously, we've had a couple service-related issues, interruptions over the past couple months, but sort of discuss what has happened, where the system stands today, what we continue to think of the system, and why the O train is the right method of transportation moving forward in Ottawa, which is really important, especially with global warming, climate change, reducing emissions, getting people out of their cars into public transit. So let's start off by talking about the current state of the O train. Obviously, O train was shut down for 8 weeks due to essentially 2 derailments. But right now we've been back in operation since November 12th, last Friday. Service has been going pretty good ever since. And really the issue is that once again it leaves people with a sour note. Can they trust it? Is it reliable? It's really unfortunate that in a system that is brand new, it's been with us now for 2 years, that there's been these kinds of issues that have really degraded public trust in the system, as well as confidence and just reliability as far as being able to get you where you need to go consistently, without issue, and without too many hurdles and all that. And it's unfortunate that things have played out the way they have. So hopefully things move forward in a better route at this point. And what do you think of the current state of the O train right now? Again, it reopened just a couple days ago. So far things have been moving well. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, like you said, so far so good. I think right now the service is every 8 minutes or so, which doesn't seem to be much of an issue. They continue the R1 service only at rush hour at this point, but with the low demand with COVID, I think just the fact that the train is open again is already a huge step forward. I remember seeing all sorts of tweets and news stories about jam-packed R1 buses. So having those high capacity trains definitely helps with those that social distancing, the reliability as long as the train keeps running. But I'm feeling pretty good, a bit cautious, but hoping that things remain stable for at least a few months.
Because the big thing really with the train, especially in the pandemic and the current reality that we're in, the train carries 600 people per train that goes by, right? Whereas a bus, depending on if it's a 40-foot bus or a 60-foot articulated or a double-decker, anywhere between, let's say, 50 to 80 or 100 people. Sometimes they overinflate these numbers. I don't know where they come up with these numbers. Sometimes it feels like it's more than 80. Sometimes it feels like it's less, but somewhere in that vicinity, right? So when you have a bus that's replacing the train, and it's only coming by, even if it's every 3-4 minutes, it's going to be a packed bus. And in a pandemic, that's not something that you want. So with the train, plenty of space to spread out, which is definitely very important right now for people to remain safe, to not continue the spread of this virus that is just dragging on and on and on. Like, it's unbelievable that it's dragging on this much. But great to see that back for the physical distancing. The ride is also smoother. Let's be honest, we live in a city with some pretty wild climate, so it's not like driving in San Francisco, where the streets are nicely paved and barely a crack in them. We're talking about pothole city here sometimes, and bumpy and cracks and everything. So it can be a very jostling ride. And especially if you're on a packed bus and it's swaying around, bouncing around, tossing you into people, it's not very pleasant. So the rails are definitely a very welcome addition to the city. And coming frequently, a direct path from the east to just west of downtown, passing through underground. Nice big stations. Some of them now have the Happy Goat coffee shop, which is really neat. Hopefully the two holdouts open up at some point in the not too distant future, because it would be great to see Herdman and Tunney's Pasture bring those on board. But really, I think that, from the work that they've done over the past month and a half, let's say, while it was closed, I'm very confident about where things stand right now. I'd like to believe that, the worst is behind us at this point. Obviously time will tell, and there's a lot of skeptics out there, but I'd like to believe that that's the case now. TRA have done a really good job. They've really gotten to the nitty-gritty of what's going on, mostly having to do with maintenance. And I know a lot of people always say, oh, it's the trains, you need to switch the trains. You look at every possible city there. We've looked at Washington, D.C. Their metro has been having significant issues with, let's say, virtually half of their fleet is grounded right now because of defects. And there's other cities right now that we're seeing across the world that are having significant issues. It's not necessarily out of the realm of normal, but it's not what we want to see, right? But it's good to hear some clarification at this point that at least the last two issues, it wasn't the train, it wasn't the technology, it was mostly a maintenance thing, which is still concerning to a point. But that comes down to maintenance practices. And you even look at when you go to the dealership with your car. I mean, I have a Subaru. Before that, I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I had a problem with it. And I kept going to the Chrysler Jeep dealership, and they just couldn't fix it. And it was like thousands and thousands of dollars trying over and over. Oh, let's try this. Oh, let's try that. Oh, let's try this. They're the representatives of the manufacturer, and they couldn't even get it right. So, and then you go to Midas or you go somewhere else, and then they fix it like that. So it really comes down to experience and all that. And hopefully, RTAG and RTM have acknowledged that, the maintenance practices, we need to do better. We're going to do better. TRA, the agency that's been looking over things and reviewing and inspecting and all that, has been helping guide them to get things on the right track. Hopefully that's really what was needed, and hopefully things move better, because from the technical standpoint, we're not seeing doors get stuck. We're not seeing power issues. We're not hearing about wheel flats or wheel cracks anymore. I mean, these are all things that are being dealt with as things go on. What do you think, Jeff, on these different points?
At this point, it seems like everybody's on the same page. The city, RTG, TRA, everybody knows it's a maintenance issue. Sure, we could argue about whether low floor was the right choice, considering we're running what's essentially a metro system, but we're past that now. There's nothing we can do about it. We have the trains we have, and like you said, the investigations have proven that it is a maintenance issue and not the trains themselves. Every little problem that we have had, they fixed them, and it's going to be the same with anything else that comes up here on out. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it. And of course, we've heard that Alstom has finally sent some more expertise to Ottawa to fix the issues and to help with maintenance. So hopefully that's going to make a difference in the long run. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Again, always cautious to not be overly confident, but I think we're in a good position.
So just to recap what's happened, so we had a first derailment in August. I'm not going to get to the specifics of the exact dates there, but first derailment in August, that was an issue of the axle bearing ultimately failing, and there was no built-in detectors on the train to detect this phenomenon from happening to give some alert without doing an actual visual inspection, which based on our understanding of how the train is built and the bogies, it's very difficult to actually inspect this without really, lifting it and doing all sorts of funky stuff. It's not like easy like on a regular motor vehicle. So that was they came up with a rectification plan to deal with that. And the second derailment happened in September, and that one involved one of the trains that was flagged as having a potential issue, discovered from the first derailment. They did some repairs, but due to maintenance issues or maintenance practices, let's say, there was a gearbox underneath that was not reattached, or the bolts that held it on weren't torqued properly to specification. Apparently that happened at a shift change, so I guess there was, I guess we have to take from that the next crew came in, they weren't current, that step wasn't done, and assumed it was, or some miscommunication to that point. Ultimately what happened, after a couple of days, that train went back out, the gearbox dropped, it dragged, it caught, the train derailed just west, or in the vicinity of Tremblay Station, and then finally came to rest. Since that time, the train was out of service for 8 weeks. TRA got involved. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada did some thorough investigations, and that's where we came to the point of it was a maintenance issue from work done in rectifying the first derailment. So it's unfortunate that one thing led to another, but I think what's also important to note here is that we're very fortunate that it could have been something even more serious. Serious injuries and all. You think of trains derailing, falling over, tipping over, people getting severely injured or potentially even losing their life. I mean, this is very lucky that there was only about a little over a dozen people on the train. It only had one axle that left the track, and it wasn't something significantly more serious turn of event. So after all this happened, the OC Transpo is has some oversight from the federal government, in the sense that it crosses the provincial border from Ottawa into Gatineau. So the TSB, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada, got involved, got their feet on the ground, did thorough investigations, much as they did for the first derailment, they did for the second derailment, provided some great public information, feedback, documentation, lots of imagery explaining really what happened, and very fortunate to have them available for this kind of thing, because if it was Toronto or Montreal, it's the transit agency themselves that would be dealing with this. So again, very fortunate to have that kind of information. What do you think about all this, Jeff, and the information that's come out?
Yeah, for sure. I think all that information is very helpful in maybe building some public trust, having those third parties investigate the issues instead of having OC Transpo, or initially, before they hired TRA, there was another company that dealt with, stage one many times over the years, and there was a serious public trust issue. City made the right call to finally, hire somebody else. I wish they would have realized that earlier, but better late than never. With all that information, hopefully we can sort of move forward and not repeat the same mistakes. I mean, torquing the bolts. Whenever I change the tires on my car, I make sure that I torque the bolts. I don't want anything to happen. That's some pretty basic stuff. So I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about changing tires on your car. I did mine just a few days ago, and I have the torque wrench, and mine have to be torqued to 89 pounds per foot. So I have my torque wrench. I'm checking to make sure they're all good, and then you check it again around 500 to 1,000 kilometers later, in case the wheel settles and it loses some tightness because of it settling a little more in. So yeah, definitely a basic thing. Surprising that unfortunately was the cause of second derailment that was a little more major than the first. But these are all maintenance procedures, maintenance technique, methodology, and really, just standard practices that should be followed. So hopefully, this whole experience really gives RTG, RTM, and the people from Alstom seriously, like a renewed focus and a determination and a sense of pride in what they do. That we're gonna get this right. We're gonna check everything, and that's what they said too at the last briefing before the train reopened. There, the technical briefing, that they did a full inspection, top from roof down. Checking all the critical connections, making sure that everything is tight, everything is in good condition, secure, not worn. So I wouldn't expect that there's really going to be, if things keep up and the maintenance is done diligently, correctly, following procedures, I personally wouldn't see anything happening at this point, because it seems like all the technical issues in regards to the train, like we talked about a while ago, doors, power, wheels, couplers, pretty much all this stuff has been rectified at this point. So, if we can just get the maintenance aspect of operating this line down, I think that we're going to be in pretty good shape moving forward. The line reopened last Friday, November 12th. Haven't really had any issues since then. They've been scaling back the replacement bus service because of, we're still in low ridership. There's still a pandemic out there, unfortunately. And truth be told, I think a lot of people, when they're making their commute right now that the train is open, they're probably siding with using the train over the bus. So, and rightfully so, because it gets you there smoother, without congestion, and with adequate spacing to distance properly. So that's definitely a good thing. So the other thing I want to talk about too is we talked about the O train, what we think of the current situation and what's happened. It's become very much a political situation. We have a lot of dissatisfaction from residents, but also from politicians in the city, from the the city council, the transit commission, the citizen commissioners. And now even the provincial government is starting to show its hand at showing its level of concern and wanting some sort of concrete action taken. So a lot of things have been tossed around. A judicial inquiry to see what's gone wrong. The City of Ottawa's Auditor General doing an investigation into everything. It's hard to say what of any of these options is necessary and what this is really going to do, because it seems like a lot of these things are just going to drag on for a decent amount of time before we really get any real tangible, actionable, if even, information that comes out of it. So my thing really is, what do people really want in this city at this point?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, I don't think there's anything criminal with what has happened. I think it's a mix of lack of experience and, quite frankly, probably some incompetence at certain levels. So, the judicial inquiry, whether or not that's necessary, I don't know. I would lean towards probably not. I think the Auditor General's investigation might be enough. And we also, it would be good to get this all done before Stage 2 opens, to get some lessons before we get to that point. But yeah, I mean, the biggest issue for me, I think, there was too much of a rush to open the line. I mean, if the line's not complete, it's not complete. You want to get it done right. You don't want to get it done fast. And I think that's where we kind of stumbled, and a big reason why we've had so many issues up until now. And hopefully we don't repeat the same mistake with Stage 2.
I kind of agree with a lot of the points you said. I mean, judicial inquiry, Auditor General, there's a lot of points that have been made by both sides as to why one is more beneficial than the other and what can come out of both options. But from a tax-paying resident, like both of us, person who uses transit, and for really everybody who rides the train or takes the bus, what do you really want to know? You want to know that you're going to get there reliably, and reliable is such a, let's say, a clumsy word. You want to know that the bus or the train is going to show up when it says it's going to show up. You want to know that you're going to get from point A to point B without an issue. So vehicle failure or an accident or any number of things like that, right? You want to know that you're going to get there safely. I think that's the one that people have a bit of concern about now because we've had 2 derailments. So that one obviously people probably struggle with. But really, those are the things that people want to know. Is it going to be consistent? Is it going to be reliable to get me from point A to point B without any issue? Am I going to be able to count on this? And it's unfortunate that, in these past couple of weeks, these past couple months, and these past 2 years, for something that should have really been transformative for the city of Ottawa to get more people on board, and gone are the days of sitting on a bus from Place d'Orleans all the way downtown. You're getting caught up in the transitway, it rocking around, bouncing, bumping into people because everybody's standing. It's not hard to say that it could have gone significantly differently, and it's sad, unfortunate, very disappointing, and a little frustrating that it hasn't gone better than it did. Just too many issues in such a protracted period of time. And, a lot of people online even hit the nail on the head when they say that it's a short line right now, 12.5 kilometers. And it's moving the same amount of people now as it will when stage 2 opens, except it's just going to extend out and pick them up closer rather than them taking a bus to reach it. So issues that happen kind of come off quite big when they do. If a stuck train, if the line's only 12 kilometers long, it's not like, well, how much can you shut down before the whole thing gets shut down? Like there's only so much of the system at that point. So once we see stage 2, you're going to see more reliability. You're going to see more flexibility when service interruptions happen. Whether it's a medical emergency on a train or somebody dropping something on the track and then the whole thing gets stopped, or a vehicle issue. It's going to be more reliable, and these kind of issues are going to spread out across the whole line rather than being in the key points that really paralyze the whole thing. So stage 2 is obviously very important, and when we look at the progress on stage 2 right now, it is quite exciting to look at. We see the airport station really taking shape. We see Lincoln Fields is really starting to grow out of the ground with the steel structure that's going to be supporting the elevator pits rising up. Corso Italia, at Gladstone, still chugging along there, and that's really going to be impressive with a nice plaza. And pretty much just looking at the progress overall, like how transformative and how all these different areas of the city are changing with it. Looking at stage 2, Jeff, what really excites you the most, and what aspects of stage 2 are going to transform your experience?
For me personally, I live in Orleans, so once that section opens, it should change my commute quite a lot. So really looking forward to that. And I obviously I drive the 174 a couple of times a week, and you can really see the progress. It's going fast. It almost looks like it's going faster than stage 2 Trillium line, honestly. Jeanne d'Arc station, Montreal station, even a bit at Place d'Orléans and Trim. They haven't really started on the Convict line yet, but that's coming. You can see that the real line highway should open fairly soon. But overall, I think what excites me the most is probably the west end between Tunney's Pasture and Lincoln Fields, because that's the urban part of the line, going through already dense neighborhoods, densifying even more with dozens of towers proposed. Same, of course, with the Trillium line from Bayview to Dow's Lake. Dow's Lake with, the new Civic Hospital and a bunch of towers up to 60 floors high. Corso Italia Station, which is an infill urban station again. Really looking forward to how these sort of urban neighborhoods continue to evolve with that rapid transit. Unfortunately, we won't see any other urban neighborhoods like Bank Street or Vanier get anything anytime soon. But hopefully, once we see how Stage 2 affects those neighborhoods, we'll maybe look at other parts of the city that might need rapid transit eventually, 20, 30 years from now.
Because I think what they're trying to do right now is really focus on the core different corridors of the city. So replacing really the transitway lines, right? The 95, the 97 to a point, going towards Bayshore and Canada and all that. So once they get Stage 2 open, I know Stage 3 is mostly dealing with going to Canada and reaching Barrhaven, but hopefully at that point they start opening the map and looking closely at Vanier, which is really a section of the city that should have proper transit system through it beyond buses. Whether it's people talk about like a subway kind of system, or even a streetcar or a tram or something reliable that's high capacity that goes through frequently. Whether it's above ground, whether it's underground, whether it's elevated, doesn't really matter at that point, as long as it can get there and go from maybe, let's say, Rideau all the way to Montreal Station. How it does it, I don't think really matters. But if it follows that corridor and it provides frequent, reliable service that people can just reach very quickly from wherever they are in that region and catch it, every 5, 7, 8 minutes, it's going to be very transformative, and that's really going to benefit those people, those communities, those residents, businesses. Everyone there is going to benefit from it. That's going to get more people there, more people in and out. It's going to be something great to see, and I really hope that happens in the not too distant future. And when I say not too distant, hopefully, we see some action on it and some proposals and some ideas that actually start getting advanced to some degree, hopefully in the next 5 or so years, so that we can see something more concrete happening in 10 years down the road. Time is now, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Go ahead, finish up the core of the system, the suburban branches. But we need to start thinking about, what Stage 4, Stage 5, Stage 6 will be. We need to go beyond just Stage 3. Even the BRT lines like Baseline or Canada North and all that, those would be hugely beneficial. But I feel like they've all been placed on pause until we get that funding for Stage 3. And, there is a bit of a question, like what would be more useful for the overall population? Those fairly cheap and easy BRTs, or, going all the way to Stittsville and Barrhaven Town Center. I think there needs to be a little bit of a conversation on that as well. But hopefully, we start planning beyond what we have on paper today.
So moving beyond all this, obviously the big challenge right now for let's say OC Transpo and for the city is to really get people back on board with the O train, with public transit in Ottawa. Obviously, it's gone through probably its greatest challenge it's ever had, with unreliability and people being turned away because of service outages and trains that are down, buses that don't arrive on time or canceled left and right. So hopefully things can finally get in the right direction. Hopefully the train, which is the backbone of everything, finally becomes reliable. What needs to get done is finally in place and is maintained for the foreseeable future and beyond, so that we can finally have the system that everybody deserves and everybody counts on. And then we can look at the rest of the city and make it all reliable. Finish Stage 2, have those lines reach from east to west and further south, and then have short feeder buses coming in, quick, reliable, and fast to get to people's destinations. So hopefully all that comes to pass. People have restored confidence, and hopefully not too many people have been turned away going to cars and finding other methods to get to work and home and all that, because that's really the opposite of what we want to see happen. We want to see it grow in the right direction. We want people to get out of their cars. We want to decongest the roads. We want people to pollute less with less emissions from the cars. I mean, we are going towards electric vehicles, but there's still going to be 20, 30, 40 years where there's going to still be a considerable amount of gas vehicles out there. So the more we can do more quickly, the better off the future will be for our children and for their futures.
Yeah, for sure. Really hoping that this is it, and from here on out, we're going to have a reliable system. And now, of course, in terms of reestablishing public trust, the city will offer free transit in December. That might help. So far, there's been quite a lot of criticism on that as well. You kind of wonder if maybe, free, not increasing fares or even maybe lowering fares for the next year might have been a better use of those funds. We do have, I believe, the second most expensive transit system in terms of fares in Canada after Toronto. And considering the reliability and another point with R1 was that a lot of those buses were taken off other regular routes, which created more congestion, and those were often urban routes, unfortunately, instead of the mostly empty suburban routes. And there's definitely, we need to do more to restore confidence, and 1 month free is not going to be enough. Hopefully the Auditor General or the judicial inquiry, if the province goes that route, we'll see how it goes. But I think the most important thing, of course, is just having it as a reliable train, not having it break down, derail, or any issues beyond very basic stuff over the next couple months, couple years.
Yeah, because that's really the biggest thing that determines how people use the system. Is it reliable? Is it safe? Is it going to get me there? And whether it's a judicial inquiry, the Auditor General, maybe the free transit month might help sway some people to come back, or people that haven't really used it before to give it a shot. Hopefully what needs to happen happens so that people come back in numbers and really make use of it and use it to its full potential, because it's here now. I believe it's the right system for Ottawa. And if we look back a couple years at when we would see the buses passing through downtown Ottawa, jammed up from one end to the other, from Ottawa U all the way to Le Breton, let's say, it's ridiculous. I mean, to have buses back to back to back over, let's say, 12 to 15 intersections is ridiculous. And that is all the proof that you need. When you just look back at those pictures, do we want to go back to that? We have a system here now. We have to make it work. I hope that this has been the turning point, and we can finally put the rough times behind us. Obviously, time will tell. This is what people want to have in the city: a proper, high-capacity, frequent rail transportation that is not crammed and has space to be able to move people quickly, reliably, smoothly, safely.
Yeah, exactly. I find that, most people, especially those who actually use transit, they understand that when the train works, it works well. And it's a huge improvement over the old bus system. I mean, even when the transitway worked well, I remember, standing on Slater Street, at 4:30 p.m. in winter. It was dark, minus 15, minus 20, and I had to look over a couple of hundred people trying to figure out which of those 30 buses is mine, if any of them. And today, well, not now because I'm working from home, but in January, if I go back to work, you just walk a couple blocks, you go down a few flights of stairs, take the train. Every train is your train. Transfer at Blair, and sure, still have to wait 15 minutes in the cold, but at least I know which bus stop to go to, and there was only a fraction of the number of buses. So it's much easier to see my bus come when it does. So it's a much less stressful situation now waiting for that transfer than it was to wait for my one seat ride 2 years ago out there in the cold on Slater Street. Waiting on Slater Street, if it was your bus, you had to run half the block to actually get to your bus. Because there weren't like separate stops. It was the entire city block was the bus platform. So it was really, you really had to pay attention.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up. So thank you very much, Jeff, for speaking with us today about the O train, how things have been going, where things are going, the promise of the future, and what we really hope to see happen. Safe, reliable, dependable service that everybody is hoping for, and hopefully we've come across the turning point now that things will be, on the right track and where it needs to be to entice and encourage people to make full use of it moving forward. So thank you again, Jeff, and we'll talk to you again in the future. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.